Are you here, Ajahn? No, I guess not.
Yeah, we have vaccine cards, but sometimes they're not allowed to add. It's crazy. But
I think John is here now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, a few minutes.
She
please.
says a few minutes, please.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
View. I'm trying to change the view on my machine. Roti's here, Tadao.
Gallery.
Gallery. That's right. Okay, that's better. Hi, Roti. Tada. Kunopadon.
Morning, Ruti. Morning, Tada. Morning, Tom.
Yeah.
Good Nopadon. Sawatika.
Morning, everyone.
Mai is here. Hello, Mai.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Tamba.
How are you?
How are you?
Yeah, we're fine.
And how is Jep? Is she with you?
Yeah, she's with me now. I'm still on the bed.
Are you still in
Ho Chi Minh. I'm in Ho Chi Minh now, yes. Yes.
okay.
My
So is Jeb going to school in Ho Chi Minh now?
Yes,
Okay.
online school.
Oh, online, right. There.
Are things improving in Ho Chi Minh, Mai?
Sorry.
Is the COVID situation improving in Ho Chi Minh?
Yes, now is I think it's better, a little bit better. Yes. Yeah.
Vaccinations the same as everywhere.
Yeah.
Swadika.
Sawadika.
สวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์สวัสดีครับ
Does someone have something they'd like to start with? I actually had something from one of the DSG posts last week, but I'm sorry, I can't find it yet. So I'll have to wait on that. I'll look.
Alberto, are you there? I can just see you, I think. Because at the end of the session on Saturday, you were just about to speak when I think someone else spoke or we ran out of time. So I don't know if there was anything you were going to bring up or comment on.
Not at the moment. Thank you, sir.
Looks very dark where you are.
Yeah, I'll try to fix that.
There's a question from Ganga. She wrote to me yesterday because she was translating the 10 Punya Karya Vatu. So her question concerns the last one. So it's a rectification of views. So her question is whether is it something higher, like a higher level of understanding than the previous one, and it belongs to the Sotapanna only or not? Could you please elaborate? Thank you.
Is it now at this very moment? We are looking for something. See, what is that and what is this? But what about now? It's moment of listening to the words that can condition right understanding. Is that not kusala? Developing the understanding, right understanding of whatever is there. So it's just right now. Otherwise, there cannot be conditions for right understanding to understand. So it can begin with kusala without panya at the beginning, but it's kusala. The understanding of the truth is so very precious. And how can it be until there is the moment of listening to the right words about whatever is there now and begin to understand? And that moment of understanding, it is panya. So that can be kusala without panya, which is interested in developing the most precious thing in life, and then listening. And that moment, it is sati. And depend on at moment of panya, whenever it's there, it is kusala with panya. So it's just right now, not at moment of eating, not hearing anything on Dhamma or whatever is there as it is. Or at moment of hearing, but not interested in it at all. But at moment of interested to understand, especially what is there now, not just thinking about other things from this to that, on and on and on. And what about this moment? It passed without any understanding. Is it useful or useless? Passing away without any understanding from moment to moment in life. So the kusala, the last one, kusala kammapata, is the interest in understanding whatever is there, because it's the most precious moment in life. Live to understand the truth. So it can be this very moment when we don't think about other things, but about the truth of what is there now.
So is there any difference between that and the kusala of hearing the Dhamma or teaching the Dhamma? I think it's
What is the point? What is the point of listening to anything?
to understand.
Just to understand. When what is heard is not useful, just talking about other things, not about this very moment. Can there be the understanding of what is there from moment to moment?
And I think, Tam, they're all the last three, the expounding, the listening, the Ditthukama, the development of understanding, they're all concerned with the development of understanding, because if the listening is without understanding, it's not the listening that is referred to. And the expounding is not with understanding. It's not the expounding or the teaching that is referred to. So they're all talking about the development of the understanding of realities. And that's why it can be now different levels, different degrees of understanding that develops for all of them.
So it's not really any difference, although they are mentioned as three separate things, but in reality, it's just the arising of panya.
It's all about the development of panya, because teaching, when explaining, it's not the same as listening, but for both, it has to be about the development of understanding. So different aspects, but all referring to the development of understanding, to bhavana, development of understanding, leading to the right path.
I think there is too, Tom, but there's another aspect to that too. Yeah, I think I agree totally with what Sarah has said. However, it may be the case, and we know this, there may be somebody who is teaching the Dhamma, and perhaps somebody who has been fortunate enough to hear Tanajan's teachings can listen in a wise way. And perhaps the person who's expounding the Dhamma has got not a very good grasp of the teaching as it really is, or as it truly is. So it's always going to depend on the situation. But those three aspects will ideally and truly be underpinned by panya at whatever level that person is capable of at that particular time.
But as I understand it, there's a difference in aspect also in terms of when we talk about straightening the view, it's straightening the view whenever panya is arising. So even when it's just listening, it's still straightening the view. When it's expounding with understanding, it's straightening the view. And when it's expounding, it's not only understanding, it's not kusla in terms of in the aspect of understanding only, but it's also dana. So there's a difference between expounding and just hearing. Hearing is not dana, it's just understanding.
There can be the straightening of views, the understanding when not listening or when not explaining, while cooking, while going about
So
one's daily life.
whenever there is
anytime.
understanding, it's straightening the view.
So that's why different aspects.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Oti, at the end of the last discussion last week, I remember you brought up the topic of contemplation, and I think it was just at the end, so it may not have been finished. And contemplation is the same. It can be with understanding or without understanding. So the contemplation the Buddha referred to, of course, is with understanding. But most of the day, there's contemplation about all kinds of things, including the Dhamma, without understanding. Then it's not the wise contemplation. But anything else on this topic?
Well, I just remembered that I thought, yeah, that it could, contemplation could be like a ambiguous term, right? That's all, really. I think that's what I don't remember the context why I had to mention that part, but that's all. Yeah.
I think it was a point that Ajahn picked up on. There'd been some discussion, and then she asked, well, what is contemplation? So, of course, contemplation now can be wise or unwise contemplation. So it depends how it's understood at this moment. Because
Yeah,
they can be thinking in any way, any kind of way. But if it's the right contemplation, like the different kinds of bhavana referred to, it has to be with understanding.
right. Because usually it's understood as somebody who is contemplating, right? Or somebody, yeah.
That's true. That's true, Rotti. I think what you touched on there about the ambiguity of words or the way they're understood, and Sarah has touched on that also, that even if you heard the word panya, but really you have not got much of a grasp of really what panya is all about, you can use that word, and you may be speaking to people using that word panya, but really there's not much about panya being spoken about or understood. So there's always going to be that trap in a way with whatever words we use. So it's always going to depend upon, the understanding that there truly is, not just, the use, you have to use this word or not this word. Or, I think about it a bit at times with, when I do some translations, and I'm thinking, it's difficult. But I really appreciated Tanajan's answer earlier on this morning when she reminded us that, understanding is about the development of the path at this present moment. And we can start thinking about this and that and all sorts of different subjects. And we forget really what the Dhamma is about. And I always appreciate Tanajan's very pertinent and apropos reminders that it's not just, it's not an intellectual pursuit, which I think it can become at times. And it's really important to have somebody to remind us that it's not just an intellectual pursuit.
It's like I came across something on a tape I was listening to, which related to a topic last time. There was a discussion about virati and the anagami and the abstaining from sampapalapa, foolish talk. and you think, well, what foolish talk would there be? But even if one is talking about Dhamma, talking about terms and details without any understanding, it's sampapalapa. It's just babble. It's not when there's not any understanding. This is the point that she was making in the discussion.
Yeah, that word some papalapa just means chaff talk. It's just nothing. It's like there's no kernel in it. There's no essence in it. So it's palava sometimes in English they say, but it's just empty talk. It hasn't got any essence to it. There's no core to it. It's just chaff. And I can't. So I'm not quite understanding what you're saying there, Sarah, about anagami, because if they were talking about Dhamma, and perhaps I misunderstood you, so perhaps you can help me clarify that. If it was an anagami speaking, and they could be speaking in the, they could be speaking on, Manusaloka, Kamaloka, of course, they might be speaking in the Brahmaloka. But so I'm not quite sure what you were saying there. Can you help me? Can you clarify that for me?
Well, what I heard on the tape, which was helpful to me, was even like now, if one's talking about terms or details or definitions or about the Dhamma, but without understanding, then it is sampapalapa. It's just ordinary talk. And so until ignorance and attachment have been completely eradicated, then there's bound to be moments of talk when it's just without any understanding, no matter it's the Dhamma topic, no matter it's talking about a definition of a term, but without understanding of the reality now, it's just empty talk.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. So, people, because we often think about talking about Dhamma, well, that can't be sampapalapa, but as you pointed out, it certainly can be if it's just about based on wrong understanding and really just so much nonsense. So, yeah, that's a good point. I hear what you're saying now. Thank you.
And it can be now. Yeah.
I'm not sure, if just a few moments as in between talking, in our case, it would probably, but in the case of an anagami, just because it's that an anagami still has ignorance and attachment and mana, does it mean that in between talking about Dhamma with understanding, some moments with moha, some moments with attachment, some moments with mana arises, it becomes sampapalapa just because of that?
I'm not sure about that one. I'll leave it. What do you think? What do you think, Sarah? We can probably, that's really fine tuning things. I appreciate your insight into that, Kunsukin, but yeah, you've probably some truth in that. Probably not so important, but it's a good point you've made.
Yes, I think the topic came up when talking about the virity, and but let's see what Ajahn has to elaborate on this topic.
Is there contemplating right now while talking, hearing? See, what is there is unknown, but it's there, and we keep on talking about it. That's why we learn to understand what is there, so we can understand the word which represents the truth of that very moment. When it's sampapalapa, it means that citta still have akusala, right? Because anagami's life is so ordinary, like citta kahapati, just ordinary, very ordinary. He came to see the Buddha, or someone came to see him and then talk, just as usual, but with different cittas from the other who still have wrong view or only skatakami or sotapanna. But for him, different from other. That's why Panya can understand the very subtle moment of when there's a kusala right then, even at moment of talking or doing anything. See, for the other people with lots of akusala, not has been eradicated anything at all yet. But that for the person, the citta is unknown for the others. But at that very moment, only that person knows at moment when it's there. Otherwise, they cannot be seeing the danger of even just like that to be eradicated. That's why now when we talk about wrong understanding, for anyone who has so very wrong understanding, taking something for worshipping and so on, no reason at all, no understanding at all. And for those who have understanding from hearing and considering, but still, what about now? What is there? It's just the word that has been heard, but the truth is there, not developed to the moment when it shows up as it is, as no one and no thing yet. That's why when we think about the other citta, it depends on how much understanding of the truth for that person to understand. For example, sampapalapa, see, in daily life of everyone who is not a sotapanna, and for sotapanna, and for sakatakami, Panya learns to understand what is there in daily life, closer and closer and closer. Otherwise, the akusala, which is so very subtle, cannot be eradicated at all. Not seeing anything as it is, that it's dangerous. Smiling or pleasant feeling, laughing is so good, enjoyable. But for the other who understand the truth, how much ignorance and attachment is there. See, the same as sampapalapapa. As much as we can say is that when citta is akusala at that very moment, even it's not the moment of being attached to sensuous object like the other people, but it's there to be known that it's there, so that Panya can see the danger of it and understanding on and on about the truth that arises and falls away unexpectedly all the time before it can develop to the degree that it's moment of realizing the truth, the Four Noble Truth again. At that moment, all akusala which is there is left, is gone completely. For example, when Buddha asked the other, "How are you today?" say, and the other say, "How are you today?" Different, citta. And for those who still have akusala, can be any time with the moment of clinging at that very moment to being and so on. No one can imagine it all. But it's there still. That's why it is a difference between different levels of the enlightened people. And we try to find out what about now. See, it's thinking. What about sanya? What about feeling? What about citta at that very moment? Unknown yet. That's why the point of listening to understand what is there when there's no awareness directly with understanding of that which has been heard a lot. For example, about hardness, about thinking, about seeing, about anything now. And this moment, is it not contemplating about the truth? It's there, everything is there unknown. And as soon as we heard about it, there's thinking of finding out. But to find it out is there with understanding of the truth. The point of study is to understand even the word Dhamma, the reality, which is there so real, it's there by conditions. It arises just to see and then gone. See, just to see, arrest, just to see, and then gone. That's all. No one there at all. And this moment, whatever is there, is completely covered up. Not understanding what we heard about Sanya or Vedana or Sankarakanda and so on. That's why it kept ones away from this moment, not to understand the truth, but from hearing the point that what is there is heard is just right now. So very close, face to face, just that. See, of whatever is there, hardness, sound, thinking, the concept or whatever is there, are so true. But it's all right just to think about it by conditions. But can it be understood at that moment when it's there, as it is sampapalapa of such and such citta, different from Sotapanna and Sakatagami and Anagami? So in order to understand what we are saying, it's just the moment of understanding when it's there as the object. But now it's there, but not the object of understanding yet, but it's there. That's why we learn to understand one characteristic at a time. We don't mind the word, whether it is attachment, aversion, because even no word is there. Dhamma very easily. But what about the understanding of the truth of what is meant by Nama? It means no one and no thing at all. So the point that should be implanted deeper and deeper to develop on and on enough to understand what is there now and at any moment in life, no matter what, no expectation for just this or that at all. It's there now and it's gone, unknown all the time, from moment to moment. If there is no understanding of the point is to understand what is there, because the words of the teachings just point out what is there now when it's there. For example, seeing all the time, how much understanding of seeing from hearing is not self, it's not me, it's just that which arises and sees. And what is meant by seeing is that which experiencing, only that which impinge on the eye base. That's all. Nothing more than that. But without understanding, it's I and many things in the world, many situations, many stories all the time in life, and then completely gone. No matter how much pleasant it was a long time ago, where is it now? Gone completely. So this moment is just like that, exactly the same. It's gone. And it's not just right now. It has to be as it is, eons and eons ago and ahead in the future, as long as there are conditions for its arising. That's why any word which will lead to understand what is there now is so very precious. Not just thinking about the word or the story, but what about right now? We talk about sati, we talk about panya, we talk about pala, we talk about insi and so on. Where are they? If it's not understanding little by little of what is there, whether it is sati sampajanya or not yet, and when it's there, what is the object, and even so, how much understanding of what object. It can appear, but to still ignorance or doubt. What is that? Doubt is there when panya is not sharp enough. Even it is there as just as it is, only one reality, but so very fast, very short, very subtle. But panya develops enough to understand what degree of understanding it. It depends on the development of understanding. very truthful, true to the truth, because it's there. So what has been heard should be studied, that it's just for this moment to understand what is it. So contemplation, just right now. And we use the word contemplation, and it's still I, because of sanya, because of feeling, because of vijnana, that which experiences are the unknown as they are, as just different ones, never be the same, never to arise again. So listen to what is there as it is. Is there any feeling at moment of seeing a flower or things or food or tasting? What is there? So real in life, unknown, passed on with ignorance. And this is moment of contemplating the truth. Just to understand the absolute truth. No one, no self, no me at all. It does mean that one should stop having such pleasant things or pleasant moment. It's there by conditions. Who can stop in one's life? What happens by conditions? Different moment for different ones. There can be so many moments of very pleasant feeling, but for those who do not understand it, take it for I and crave for more and more. But the person who has the understanding, little by little, it's gone, it's just there. The clinging is less than those who try to find it again, have it more and more and more. To understand what is there is by conditions. Even while one is wishing or wanting, it cannot be there from wishing or wanting. But what is there, even seeing right now, what is there, seeing now is there. Who make it impossible? It's there by conditions. So everything which is there in life from moment to moment is only that which is conditioned. As long as there are conditions, no one can escape from being born again and die again and have many things again and then gone all the time. But it's not easy to have less clinging, only right understanding from hearing. Feel free from wanting it to be more than just understanding, just want to experience it. That is wrong again. That's why understanding the meaning of anatta, no one and no thing, what is there, no matter what it is by conditions. And it's there as one has understanding it as it is. It's there now by conditions. Next thing, it's there now, then by conditions. Anything by conditions, and then gone. So who owns anything? Impossible. It's just the way dhammas are from moment to moment. And what are they? Just in a moment. See, unknown. Until Buddha pointed out what is there even at moment of seeing. And what is known is known. What is not known does not appear to be known until it's there, appearing, becoming the object for panya to develop, to understand it as it is. For those who have heard only, but for those who haven't heard about the truth, cannot be understand what is there, cannot understand what is there as it is. Just live on and on and on and on from moment to moment. That's why one can see the precious moment of understanding of what is there. Are we going right now? We use the word we for each person. Thus anyone is going on and on and on to the end, and then on and on to where? See, who knows where we are going from this life. Impossible. No choice. No one can select. The same as what condition one to be born in this world. No selection by conditions. And it has to keep on like this. And this is what is meant by samsara, non-stop, until there's no conditions anymore for anything to arise. It cannot arise when there's no conditions. Just follow the right word because it's so right. Otherwise, it's impossible to be right. Even thinking, right thinking or wrong thinking. What about this moment? What is right thinking and what is wrong thinking for it? So any word which we would like to understand is there now, just like the word contemplation. It's the unknown, not me, not anyone, but the realities which arise and perform their function, each different ones. That's why we learn to understand how can anything arise. For example, passa. See, what is it? It's not a word, but it is each moment when what is there. To condition moment of no one and no thing at all. When it's kept in mind, implanted, it develops to understand the truth. No me, no thing. But what is there now? A reality which cannot be taken for anything or anyone at all. It is as it is. The reality which is conditioned to arise to experience, no one can change because it's there already, only to be understood the way it is, as it cannot be changed. It cannot belong to anyone, and it's gone, completely unknown. And that which can understand is what we say, panya, or right understanding, develops from hearing again and again and again naturally, not try to change it to be quiet or silent or private or anything at all. The way it is by conditions. And this is the subtle way to let go, the clinging to what is there until Panya develops enough to understand just one reality at a time by conditions. And it's so one, from one now to just only one when there's nothing at all, only that reality. And this is what we are learning to understand the truth, whether it's true or not, as it's so true. And when there's panya, it let go wrong understanding and ignorance little by little until there can be the understanding of one reality clear, closer. Otherwise, it cannot appear as it is. And understand each word of the Buddha who enlightened the truth of this moment, what is meant by nimitta. So what about the truth? The truth, without that, there cannot be nimitta right now. So what appears is only the shadow of that, with just there arising and falling away, unknown. What is known is only the shape and form of something there. instantly as soon as one opens one's eyes. That's there already. Who can change? Impossible. Just to understand a little more in one life, or more than just a little, by accumulation and conditions. As soon as there's hearing about the truth, there can be the understanding of the truth as the truth. This moment is so true, it's conditioned to be only seeing or thinking or liking. What is there? Only there and then gone. No more. So it's there when it is conditioned to arise and appear, when there is the reality which can experience it, to know that it is there as it is, visible object as it is, sound now as it is. So
I
each
can,
truth can be contemplated carefully, wisely, to understand the point, the most precious thing in life, which is this very moment that can be understood deeper and deeper.
can I ask you a question, Achan?
Please.
It's about nimitta of sanya, and I don't quite understand how nimitta of sanya works. Could you explain, please?
And what about nimitta of visible objects? Nimitta of seeing? Nimitta is different, or nimitta has to be nimitta. And so what is meant by nimitta? One knows that from hearing, citta arises and falls away in a split second. What does it mean? It arises to experience an object. That's why there's so many things when citta experiences it one by one, so very rapidly, that it seems like everything is there, right? Thinking just about this. So just one moment of experiencing an object, can it appear as it is? No thing, no one. For
No, it's
example,
too fast.
that's why beginning to understand what is meant by nimitta. Can it be just one single moment of seeing be known?
No.
See, but now no count, it's there. But what we have learned from the enlightenment of the Buddha, whatever is there, is not permanent at all. It seems like it's there for quite a long time. Even if it's so short, it's long enough, then it is, because it just arises and then falls away instantly. See? And Buddha taught about each moment arising and following instantly, followed by what is there, by conditions instantly, all the time. Unknown. That's why what is there which is not known, the succession of the arising and falling of whatever is there, no matter what. For example, that which is seen, it impinges on the eye base, it's seen and then gone. But so many, many, many uncounted moments. So it seems like it's there. The whole body of a doll, see, or whatever, the leaf, the plant, the bed, the curtain, and so on, it's there. How fast it is, how repetitive it is, arising and falling away in succession. No one can stop. The succession of that which conditioned as soon as it has fallen away, it conditioned the next one instantly, on and on and on. So what appears now as not the way it is, or not as it is, arising and falling away. So as one learned contemplating on it about the truth, can just single one reality be object of understanding? Impossible. That's why Buddha taught about one by one, from moment of birth on and on to moment of seeing, and then on and on to moment of hearing, and so on. See, unknown right now. He talked about citta before seeing. He talked about citta, which follows the seeing, but does not see. What does it mean? Because now there is only seeing appearing as object right now. It's there, it's known. The object is known. The seeing is known as seeing. No moment of arising and falling away is known. That's why what appears is a succession of that which arises and falls away so very, very fast. So it appears as one thing, like seeing is seeing. But actually, how many moments of seeing? Because not only one single seeing cannot be experienced. And that is the moment, the meaning of nimitta, no matter what. Nimitta of rupa, right? Even it does not appear as a door yet. But even just that, when we understand, how can it be there? There must be citta before that, and what citta arises before seeing, and so on. Unknown. What appears is only seeing. So the seeing now is nimitta of the reality which experiences an object, right? And when it's
Right,
hearing,
Ajahn. Right. Maybe I've placed too much emphasis on sanya because it just arises and falls away with those jitters that experience
together with
objects.
citta, but it arises with citta, falls with citta. So when citta arises, it's there, and when citta falls away, it falls away together. So what appears now is just like citta, appears as the mitta of citta. So sanya, no matter it remembers what, it is nimitta of sanya. Because what about the sanya which arises with panchattvara vachana citta? See, it's not the one which arises with Chakku Vijnana, right? Experiencing the same object, but different sanya because it arises with different citta. So even sanya is now, it's the object of beginning to understand that right now that which must and remember is there. Otherwise there cannot be anything. There cannot be a doll, there cannot be flower, there cannot be bed or anything. But sanya, which marks, which remembers what is there, takes it for that. So how many sanyas can condition such nimitta of something? So sanya has to be nimitta of sanya too, as nimitta of seeing, nimitta of like, dislike, or whatever. That's why there is the word rupa nimitta, vedana nimitta, sanya nimitta, sankhara nimitta, vinyana nimitta. What else? Rupa nimitta, all there. Five khanda includes whatever is there. Is only nimitta, which appears to be taken for what and what. Even it's not yet taken for this, but the nimitta of that is different from other nimitta. Otherwise, how can there be different idea of different ones? As a doll is not a flower. See, sanya also is nimitta because only one sanya, which with one citta, cannot be object of understanding by way of the processes that Buddha taught from one moment to another moment. to understand that what
Thank
we're
you, Ajahn.
to understand that what we are hearing now is there now, no matter what, it's there unknown. That's why beginning to hear about it, to understand it. What can be understood must be right now, because it's there, which hasn't been known yet, but it's there. That's why from hearing, that can begin to be object of understanding, one by one, a little more, as usual, as natural, as the way it is. Because no one can do anything, no one can make anything arise at all are dhammas.
And Zita, the thing is that Sanya never appears. I mean, it appears only to develop Panya. So for us, what we know is what we know. We know visible objects, so we think about visible object. We think about Sanya only by inferring that Sanya is there. But we do think about visible objects. So when you think about nimitta, you can think about nimitta of visible object and have no question about that. But you don't even think about, we don't know sanya, so you cannot imagine what it is, like what sanya is and what the nimitta of sanya is. But it's there, it's a reality. All realities, everything that rises and falls, there is nimitta.
Right, Suki, that's really good because to me, I know I always remember you see something. Well, thank you. Something may happen. I'm being told I've got unstable internet connection. So the next question is about ayuhana. Does ayuhana mean accumulations?
Yes, it does. Ayuhata, yes, to accumulate, to build up.
Oops. Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier, Sundara. So instead of saying accumulations, we could say ayuhana.
Yeah, I think it's always important. The context is always important. So yeah, we're talking, because as we talked earlier on, also when we talked about accumulations, we might be talking about sankharas. There's different sankhara cetasikas there. Of course, vinyana, we can say, is also a khandha too. So yeah, accumulations is another word, and I think always the valuable thing to bear in mind is the context to it. So when people bring up a word, I found this very helpful. Think, okay, how can that word be understood better? I mean, Ajahn also reminded us this morning, and I always appreciate that we can think about all these different things, but the important thing is to relate, is to develop the wisdom that understands what's presently arising. That's the most important thing. And I always find that such a valuable reminder. And because sometimes I'm often thinking about a Pali word, and I'm thinking, how do you translate that? And I get lost up in this world of stories about what word's most suitable, but I forget what Tanajan was mentioning this morning about what's really the important thing, at any particular moment. And because she said this morning also that, it's so precious, understanding at whatever level is so precious. And I think it's easy to forget that.
And I think it's particularly referring, Azita, to the accumulation of karma at the moment of birth consciousness that can bring results during this life. So it's not just referring to accumulation of lobha and dosa as usual. So it's referring to the accumulation of karma at the moment of birth to bring results during this life.
Okay, well, that was my query was because I had read that somewhere. So yeah, you've made it even clearer, Sarah. Thank you. That's great.
More confidence about no one and no thing, what is going on in life by the accumulation of karma which has been accumulated just for this life. Ayuhana. For example, like an ant, how many kusala moments in previous life, but at that moment can that wholesome karma condition more than just being an ant?
That's a
Even
difficult one
lots
to
of
answer.
that as elephant, as human being, different ayuhana.
So it's specifically the gamma, like Sarah just mentioned, the gamma that produces patisanti jinta of the next life and all that follows.
All the
in that life from
accumulated
that
karma,
gamma.
the moment of birth that can bring result in this present life, like the karma, accumulated karma of the ant that can bring results in that life, is not the same as the accumulated karma of a human that can bring particular results in this human life. So even though there might have been great kusala karma performed before, is it accumulated in the birth consciousness that can bring results during that particular lifetime?
Right.
Like, can there be the experiences in this lifetime that can occur in a Deva realm or in a Rupa Brahma realm, no matter what kusala has been performed before? So it's the accumulated karma that can bring results during this particular lifetime, a particular lifetime for a Deva or an ant or a Rupa Brahma, Patisanti. So it's that karma that can bring results during that lifetime. So it's quite a specific meaning.
It is.
Not just accumulations in general. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's clear that up for a while.
Yes, and on the sanya nimitta, I think it's just the same as nimitta of any conditioned reality. So whatever arises and falls away in rapid succession, it's only the sign or the impression that's left. So no matter what reality one's talking about, it is the nimitta that can be experienced or can be known depending on the degree of panya.
Thank you. Great information today.
In terms of talking about karma that can bring results in this particular life, which means there is other accumulated karma that won't bring results in this life. That would also be what? That would also be at the moment of Patisanti Citta, wouldn't it? It's, you know, I thought the accumulations in Gamma were carried from moment to moment.
Yeah, I think what Sarah was alluding to there, Diane, is that, and I was just thinking about that when Sarah was speaking, is that they'll only bring result, like if you're born in the world of Manusa Loka, then there are not conditions, even though there might have been, well, you know, you might have done some really horrible things or some really special things. The horrible things might have taken you to low, you know, really low, really unfortunate worlds. But there's, once you're born as a human, there are not those conditions. There won't be conditions to experience those kind of horrible things that can be in that really horrible plane. Same with Devaloka too, or a human being, and we may have done deeds that could easily condition rebirth in a Devaloka, but there are not conditions at this particular point in time to experience those.
Yes. I see, thank you. Yeah, that makes it clearer. In other words, some conditions for certain karma to arise are, well, to a large extent, limited.
The condition.
Past karma is accumulated in each chitta, like you say, but it depends on the conditions when it can bring its results.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you, Sarah. And Sundara?
And I think, and you're asking because you probably also heard that some karma done in this lifetime can bear fruit in this lifetime, not always in a future lifetime. So, and I was thinking that maybe the concept of ahuyana is just it's what it is, but there can be karmas that are not within this ahuyana thing that can condition other experiences too, and maybe by conditions. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, I'm not following your last point. So
No, what I'm saying is that when we hear about ahuyana, and I'm sorry because I was away just now, I didn't hear the whole thing. We assume that it's only those that are going to be the experiences of our life in this life, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, which is a result of karma. But as I understand it, the example I gave about karma that is done in this lifetime and condition results in this lifetime, that is definitely not in the ahuyana, right? So I'm wondering whether there were others also that is can be conditioned by other conditions. I'm not sure.
let me go back just a bit. Not in the ayuhana. This life means was not with the patisanti citta. Is that right? Not yet accumulated.
Right.
And
I think what Sarah was saying, there, and it makes sense to me, that at the moment of birth, we've accumulated what's called upana kamma. We've done countless trillions of deeds, both skillful and unskillful, mostly unskillful, I suspect. And at the moment of birth, say birth as a human being, well, the kind of results that you can experience in the human plane, excuse me, in the human plane are going to be dependent on certain conditions that wouldn't be operative if you lived in a hell world, or if you're born in a hell world, or as a preta. It's specific to that particular locality, that bhumi, whatever. So the deeds are those we've just done so many, as I said, what are called upana kamma, deeds that have arisen, done, completed. Of course, many of them are not kammapatta, so that's going to be another factor to bear in mind too. But you see, each deed that it's done at each particular moment, like now when we're thinking about all sorts of things, they're not necessarily to the level of kammapatta, but if they're done often enough, and that's another aspect to always bear in mind, that we have these accumulations, and that's why some accumulations may not be always, we need to be, well, it's going to depend on conditions, but I think you know what I'm saying, that our accumulations build up. And that's what the word accumulations actually mean, to heap up moment by moment. They're not always at the level of kammapatta, but they can easily become kammapatta. And those deeds can condition, when they are kammapatta, birth in a whatever plane that is appropriate to those deeds.
Another example would be of this time of a kusala accumulation, and that is the understanding of the Dhamma. But if one is born at a time when there is no Dhamma, then some of those accumulated karma cannot bring result, or can only bring perhaps limited kind of result. So that would be another example of how it depends on the life into which one is being born as to what kind of results can manifest in that lifetime.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jonathan, because as Sanajana reminds us when she talks about Sariputta, he had accumulated those vast accumulations of panya, but if he didn't meet, in that particular case, Asaji, that wouldn't have, or anybody off it has to be the right conditions for that panya to flower or to grow enough to, develop the level that it did. Yeah, that's a good example, Jonathan.
Sundara, I believe it was you, although it might have been somebody else, who put a post on DSG this week. And you quoted something from the Mulapariyaya Sutta, as well as something from the Satipatthana Sutta.
No, I don't.
That was Herman.
Herman, yeah, that might have been. Yeah, I don't think it was me. Yeah.
Well, what I was wondering about was the piece from the Sati. I can't find the post right now, unfortunately, but the piece from the Satipatthana Sutta made a lot of sense. I mean, I could understand it to a degree, as much as my own understanding will allow, but the other one from the Mulapariyaya Sutta, talking about nose, seeing in seeing, hearing in hearing, etc. But then it got into a number of things that I wasn't quite understanding. And it's maybe the wrong time to have brought this up again when I don't have it in front of me. But some of the things were the impermanence in impermanence, certain consciousness in certain consciousness, but it mentioned a number of things about gods as well. Is anyone recollecting what that might have been? Okay, I will have to look.
I'm not sorry. I'm sorry, I can't. Sorry,
are you talking
Jonathan,
about the gods who help create weather?
Yes, was that in there? Did you read that too?
Yeah, I read that. I think Jonathan answered to that post.
Okay,
I don't remember whose post was it, but I remember that Jonathan answered to the post of the gods who create the climate or the weather.
Yes, yeah, I'll have to look at that again then and see Jonathan's response.
I think I don't know that my response will answer your question. I think the passage you have in mind was this one, and the post number is 169040. He directly, this is from the Satipatthana Sutta, I think.
What number is it?
Ending in 040. He directly knows water as water, fire as fire, wind as wind, beings as beings, gods as gods, Pajapati as Pajapati, Brahma as Brahma, the luminous gods as luminous gods, etc. Then there's a whole list of these things, as well as the seen as the seen, the heard as the heard. So you're probably wondering about the reference to beings and gods and Pajapati and Brahma. And is that right?
Yes, that must be it. Although I thought it was from the Mulapariyaya Sutta, that part.
Well, he mentions Mulapariyaya Sutta, And then he says, for example, in the Satipatthana Sutta, but actually I think it is from the Mula Pariyaya Sutta that he's quoting. So that's a quote from the Mula Pariyaya Sutta, which is Majjhima 1, the first sutta of Majjhima Nikaya.
I think
Right.
it's pointing out and how the ignorant worldlings like us take beings as beings and gods as God, think of beings and think of gods and so on. But for the wise, they understand that there are just different elements, different khandhas that are taken for beings, that are taken for gods. So there is, when reflecting on beings, no misunderstanding for the Seka, for the trainer, the Sotapanna, Sakadagami and Anagami, but for ignorant worldlings, for the Putujana, the beings are taken as beings, the gods as gods, and so on. If one reads it together with the commentary, it's very clear. It's just referring to the different dhatu, the different elements mistakenly taken for something, like earth is misunderstood as being table and chair and ground, but for the wise, it's just hardness that is experienced, and the same for every other reality.
Thank you. That helps. And I'll look these.
What is seen is just visible object, not a being, not a person, but for the ignorant, it's taken as being a being right now.
Okay. Good. I will look that up, and thank you.
So it
Yeah,
says
it is in
something that
Mula Pariyaya and its commentary, yes.
it says to know the luminous gods as the luminous gods, right?
Yeah,
think
that's
that-
one of them. Yeah.
Which would mean to know a chair as a chair, for example. What does that mean, to know a chair as a chair?
A chair is a rupa. A luminous God is not a rupa.
No, I mean, but a luminous God is a concept. That's what I mean.
That's it. But you can understand that what we take for a chair, as Sarah was explained, what we take for a chair is actually visible object, right? So the same way, what we take for luminous God is in reality chitta, chetasika, like a human being. You know, what we take for a human being, we usually take it as someone with this shape and form, but actually what is a human being is chitta, chetasika, and rupa is conditioned by karma, right?
So what's the difference between saying know a human being as a human being, or know a human being as chitta, chetasika, and rupa?
I wouldn't put it that way but it's actually knowing that at that moment, what is taken for the idea of human being, what is taken for the idea of luminous God, what is taken for the idea of chair. So a person with understanding would know that it's just different realities.
And the luminous gods is referring to the those who have attained jhana, those reborn in the jhana realm, and then there are those who have attained the fourth jhana, the gods of the abundant fruit, and then the section on the infinite space. But actually, it's just talking about four khandhas in the last case, just different moments of kusala, vipaka, chitta, and kiriya chittas, of those born in that realm. That's all. So we know that whatever we read about, it's actually referring to different results of different past karma, different kinds of jhana, and different kinds of rebirth. But actually, in each case, there are just different khandhas that are understood by the wise. So when one refers to the Sotapanna or the one reborn in the Arupa jhana realm, one understands that actually there is no one at all, just different moments of vipaka, different kusala, akusala citas, and vipaka citas, and kiriya citas, that's all.
So it says, knows the one born in the Arupa Jhana plane as one born in the Arupa Jhana plane. It's, yeah, it's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? Because known, until one knows them though, with understanding, you are going to misunderstand what is written there.
The question I would have is if it's just referring to Citta Citta Sikha Rupa, why it mentions different classes of beings, because all beings would be whatever the destiny of the being. If there's something that's the object of consciousness, it's just going to be Citta Citta Sikha or Rupa.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. But at the same time, I suppose, Jonathan, the answer to that could be that some people focus on a particular kind of God or being born in the Rupa Brahma Loka or wherever, and that might be specific for their interest, and that's a reminder to them that what's really being referred to as the reality. So yeah, that's all I could say to that. It's a good point, but that's a possible answer to that question. That's all.
And like when we're talking about the ayuhana karma, the realities are different. So no matter whether it is the highest Brahma realm that's being referred to, there are still just different khandas, like Bahya and all those who thought they were enlightened because they had attained the highest jhanas. But for the wise, they understand that even those citas are just different khandas. At the very end of the section, the last section, it says in the commentary, I just got it out, that the base of infinite space is the four khandas based on this plane, the wholesome kusala, the resultants vipaka, and the kiriya, but only the khandas of those reborn on that plane are meant. For this is a discussion delimiting the plane. So it goes on like with the others. So it shows no matter what plane, no matter what God or human, there are just different khandas, different realities, which are understood without any misunderstanding by the terms and the details by those who are enlightened, but by the ignorant worldlings are misunderstood all the time. So it shows that what is true for any element, any khandha, no matter in any realm or no matter what we're talking about. The truth is the truth regardless.
And before mentioning seeing luminous gods as luminous gods, what does it say? It says to know what else? To know. Because what I found a little bit strange is that I think that before luminous God, it mentions like ultimate realities. To know such ultimate reality as such, and then it mentions luminous gods, which I thought it was strange because luminous God is not an ultimate reality.
That's where I got a bit confused too, because it does start out, okay, yes, and then it moved into things that.
And it's the first time that I actually hear something like this, because usually I always hear, seeing as seeing, or
right,
or hatred as hatred, like talking about ultimate reality. But I've never heard like knowing a chair as a chair, talking about concepts. So that's why I found it strange.
I think too, that might be part of the equation is that I know sometimes when I look at Pali and I look at the way they've been translated, the translator translates them often at their level of understanding. So that can add another level of confusion into the matter. And yeah, there's just another consideration. I hear what you're saying, Roti, and I'm sure you'd be aware of that too, that when you look at the way it's originally put, it can be more helpful than the way it's translated.
My own thinking is that dimension of realities is okay for us because there are realities now, but sometimes so when we talk about seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, we can relate to it as because we are here, we are alive, and we can the objects of this world. But then when it comes to mention about other beings in other realms, there can be doubt. So what the sutta probably is saying is that for someone with right understanding, there is no doubt about that. And because in the end, like now, even there is just different dhammas.
Like saying now the people we see on the screen are understood as people on the screen. It's understood that these are just conventional terms referring to different realities, which are taken for people on the screen, but actually they're just khandhas. So they're just people on the screen can be understood as referring to what is real, or can be understood as just referring to concepts on account of the different dhammas, the different realities seen and thought about. So that's why when there is more understanding, whatever is read or heard, no confusion or misunderstanding, because it's clear that there are only different khandhas arising and falling away, no matter how they're referred to. And this is the point of the sutta, referring to the distinction between the understanding of the Putujana and the understanding of the one with no wrong understanding. So no matter whether referring to gods or water or earth or humans, actually just different elements.
And that we kind of talked a little bit about this on Saturday, I believe it was, when someone mentioned about the Sangha, because and sometimes people say that in the sutta there's no Abhidhamma, but when that tribute is paid to the Sangha, we say it refers to the different moments. We're not paying ultimately respect to the Sammuti Sangha. We're paying tribute to the Aryan Sangha, which ultimately is represented by different moments, the Magga and Palas of the different level of be it Sotapanna and so on up to Arahata. It is just moments, but so easy to read that as being paid to, the Sangha. We don't realize that really it's the different moments that we pay respect to. So that was, that's helpful, Sarah, that when we look at the screen, there is just different dhammas. When we read any sutta, it's so helpful to bear that in mind. And I think Ajahn has pointed that out often when we read, whether it be Sutanta or Vinaya for that matter, there are different dhammas appearing, and it's so easy to overlook that point and get caught up in the conceptual kind of drama of it all in a way sometimes.
And Sundara, you just reminded me of the question I had from this thing which Robert said, and I think what Robert was pointing at, what he was trying to say was this. I understand what you say about the seven Arya, the seven Lokutara Dhammas as being the what is referred to in that sutta, in that particular refuge, in terms of refuge. And I understand that only because it's talking about the highest refuge. Highest means the highest. So those are the particular dhammas. But when Robert was asking, I think what he was also referring to was, okay, so after the enlightenment, the Magga and then the Phala, what about don't you pay respect to the Chittas after that? I mean, a Sotapanna is a Sotapanna, not just at the moment of enlightenment, but after that too. So, so what about respect towards those beings?
Respect for those who have been enlightened.
Right.
Yeah. So when one pays respect to the Sangha, it is showing respect to the wisdom of those who have fully
Without
realized the
those
noble
particular
truths.
kilesas, yeah. Without those particular kilesas. So, anything, Sundara?
Well, I think what Sarah's alluded to this, and I'm not quite sure the point that you are trying to make. I listened to what you were saying there, Kunzukyun, but I didn't quite follow it all. I think perhaps I would just say that what is being referred to, the Aryan Sangha, can be lay people in that sense too. People often just think of bhikkhus or bhikkhuni, but it also just as easily, like in the case of the Suddhodana Maharaja, the Buddha's father, he was Arahata. He was certainly a member of the Sangha in that respect. So, and perhaps I'm not quite understanding your question, but my understanding of when we pay respect, or when we say that, we start off by saying, supatipanno, we're paying respect to those who have reached the path and have eradicated certain levels of akusala, right up to arahata pala. But they are essentially just different moments, whether we are in robes or out of robes. That is what's referred to as the Aryan Sangha, not the Sammuti Sangha.
I mean, that's how I understand it. But on Saturday, it sounded as if you were only referring to the moments of Magga and Pala.
Okay, well, that's what I was referring to. That's what I was.
And now it sounds like you refer the beings worthy of respect include chittas after the Magga and Pala.
Well, can you still hear me there? Yeah.
Yes.
So, it's just different moments that tribute is being paid to ultimately to those moments after. Yeah, and it would refer to those moments after, would have to, because those people would have eradicated that level of defilements, whatever level they're at. Does that make any more sense? I'm trying to actually get a better sense of where you may be coming from.
No.
I think
What you're saying now is fine, but it's on Saturday. It sounded as if that it's either the Magga and Pala or people, the concept of a person. So you were pointing out that it's not the person, it's the realities. But when you talked about realities, you only specified those Magga and Pala chittas. You didn't, as though it did,
I see what you're saying.
It did include what happened after the.
I see.
Okay.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that's a fine distinction. Now it's clear to me. So I appreciate your patience and making that clearer. No, because it's actually, this says Yaditam Chattari Purisyugani Arte Purisapugala. So that's what we're paying tribute to, but it must obviously, which is the Yaditam Chattari, which means namely the four. Then it goes on to say Yaditam Chattari Purisyugani. Yugani means the four pairs of those particular Puggala. Doesn't refer to them as persons, it's like, because in the Abhidhamma you have the Puggala Panyati, that book which deals with these different ideas which don't necessarily, which will relate to realities ultimately, but those people, we have to use that word sometimes, will subsequent to those moments of enlightenment are obviously still will be worthy of respect, but they are the kind of the precipitating factors in a way that respect will obviously be due to, because of that level of wisdom that's been attained to.
I was thinking about the gods that are seen as gods. I think it's also because even gods have wrong view about realities. So even gods take themselves for being real as not anicca and not dukkha.
I think that's a very good point, Alberto. You know, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because those Dewa, the radiant gods, the Dewa, Abhasara, they're, I believe, of the second jhana, I believe, the second jhana level. So, and beings born in that plane, and actually, fact, true is what, and this is what truly happened. Apparently, Moggallana visited one of these Brahmins in the Rupa Brahma Loka, and because he had these wrong views, and Moggallana spoke to him that that was not so. So they definitely can have wrong view, and so that's a really good point I think you've made.
Yeah, it's pointing out all different. Yeah, and also about Roti saying, seeing a chair as a chair. I don't think the Buddha said that. I think the
The translation.
Yeah, I don't recall reading that in the Satipatthana Sutta about the chair.
No, that's right. And I think sometimes it is a translation that can confuse people. And then on top of that, as we know, if we haven't been fortunate enough to hear the good Dhamma, it's so easy to misinterpret it at so many different levels that it adds to confusion. And by the way, while I'm speaking to you now, you're asking that question. You made that really good point at an earlier time, and I've been reading, and I'm doing an email at the moment too on this aspect of nimitta, as opposed to nimitta. So I am still considering it, and I think it's a really good point. So I appreciate you mentioning that to me in one of your posts.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, nimitta is it's also a class of gods, I think. I was reading the one that make the world they live on. So I don't remember the details. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There's two different types. It's the fifth and the sixth Devaloka. The Devaloka, the number 6, is where where Mara lives, or that's his abode. And then you've got, and which is called the Parinamite Wasawati. It's literally translated as beings who other people create these delightful pleasures for them. And the Niminnamarati, which is the number 5, the fifth Devaloka, it's not so sophisticated, shall we use that word, but they create their own delights themselves. But anyway, one plane is a lot longer than the other one, but this is kind of, it's interesting, but it's helpful to understand the word nimitta, which is different from nimitta. And I got confused, and I appreciate you pointing it out to me. And it's a good example of how just one consonant can throw the whole matter out of proportion. So, and it's so easy to say, and I have to really think about it sometimes, because I say nimitta as opposed to nimitta, which one's got one M and double T. So, and this is why it's important. And there is a sutta, I mentioned this to you also, that talks about how important it is to use the right vowels and consonants. And there is a sutta specifically speaking about this, because it can lead to a lot of confusion for obvious reasons.
Sundar, I don't know if you saw the post I wrote quoting from the commentary about the term and how it's referring to the different Aryan Savakas. So the first expression, born from the mouth, referred to how they were born by an Aryan birth, i.e. from a Dhamma teaching, and the Dhamma born, seeing as they were born into the Dhamma, consisting of the teachings to become an Aryan, and Dharma conjured or Dharma fashioned, in that they're being, this is the other nimitta word, fashioned by that Dharma, and Dharma heirs because they have developed the mindfulness and panya and so on, as understand that as being the true inheritance, not material things. So it's just different definitions referring to the nature of those who have understood the truth.
Totally. No, that's a good point, Sarah. I'm appreciating you brought it up, because I've been doing a lot of reading and research on it. And I think it's a good example, and it seems to me, even by way of commentary, where they can use these words because they talk about Dhamma conjured. Now, I think that's a very misleading word. Initially, I became quite interested in it. But the word, and as I said, I've been thinking quite a lot about it. And I think it can be very misleading because, of course, as we know, Dhamma isn't conjured. And that person, I remember his name also from well in the past. He did a lot of translating, and I don't think that is an accurate translation. And I think any translation will always depend on the context. I'll just speak to that in a moment. The word I believe here is the Dhamma. Yes, the word, as you said, is Dhamma nimitta, which is the past participle of these creations. And I can understand how he's come up with this idea of conjured. But as we know, Dhamma cannot be conjured. Can be very misleading. The word is best translated as pervaded, Dhamma pervaded. And it's sometimes translated as constructed. But like in any language, we use in English, obviously, different words, a word, and it can mean different things in different contexts. And so when it's translated as Dhamma nimitta, not nimitta as I initially spelt it, so I sort of noticed this and I thought, oh, that's not a particularly helpful translation. But as Ajahn will always remind us, and it's very helpful, that we remember what the realities really are. But that word nimitta is used in that sense of Dhamma nimitta, which is obviously referring to the flowering and the manifestation of panya, but also can be used when, for example, Sakka, the king of the Sakka Maharaja and the Tawatingsa, when he takes the form of another person. It's often says by way of commentaries, and it possibly may even be in the suttas. Certainly Mara did this also. He appeared to the monks, to the bhikkhus, and the Buddha automatically recognized him. There's a very good sutta on this. Mara, and he comes along as a plowman, and he's pretending to be somebody else. So he takes this form. He becomes the word is created, this form. So there, obviously Mara hasn't got that level of panya, and the Buddha very skillfully points this out to him, but I don't know if he realized it. So I'm going down all sorts of tracks here, but I'm saying some of these words that they translate them as like Dhamma conjured, I think can be very misleading, because as we know, and it's referring to panya, and panya is not conjured. And I think, those people who use those words haven't really considered carefully or have met the right teacher to help them to really understand. They try to understand this word themselves, and especially if they read that word of Sakka, he who takes the form or of another being. And that's, they create, they manifest themselves however they do this. Obviously, I don't know about, but it's possible that Mara did it very often. Sakka did it. He appears. So that's where the word nimitta is often used. But in the context of wisdom, the word that I think is most accurate, or it's one that I think is most useful at this point in time, is Dhamma pervaded. They're pervaded with truth, or with the truth of Dhamma. They're not Dhamma conjured. I think can be somewhat misleading. But I really appreciated that post.
Yes, and it
Sorry.
doesn't matter what the word is. The point is that the influence of Dhamma is there.
Yes.
And for those who have understood the truth, it is because of the understanding. Otherwise, we go off on, and it becomes more and more sampapalapa if it's just concern about the term and the detail instead of understanding the truth right now. And that's the main point of whatever one is reading about. So
Yeah,
it has
agreed.
to come back to this moment. Otherwise, when we read it, we just go off more and more on different tracks and forget what the point of it is now.
Totally, Sarah. I agree with that, and that's the point I made earlier on. But I think to translate Nimin Dhamma Nimmita as Dhamma conjured, I think that's very misleading. Ultimately, of course, it will come down to the understanding, but to have that word there as conjured, Dhamma being conjured, Dhamma is not conjured. Dhamma is about the development of understanding. So I think that's why I said it can be misleading. And I think the word pervaded, and I bear in mind what you said, I think that's axiomatic. That's always going to depend upon the understanding, not the word. That's very clear, and I think I've talked to that many times. But I think the word can be helpful. If we use all sorts of words like conjured for the development of panya, then I think that can be very misleading and unhelpful.
John, do you have anything you would like to add on any of the topics that have been discussed?
Is there anything interested to talk about now?
What you have to say is always interesting.
True.
Right.
What else?
And I'm always interested in hearing about now. So any more reminders or talking about, I think we can't hear often enough about how important it is now that anything to be known.
Any thinking is now, so no matter what the object of thinking about, what term or what details, what about the understanding right now of the thinking now, the seeing now? It has to be now, otherwise for sure it will be
The understanding
sampapalapa.
develop. That's right. There will be no development of understanding without understanding at some level that it is now that has to be understood. So,
but if it's sampapalapa, then that's the now.
That's right.
Now, and that has to be understood now, because like we discussed earlier, even in the case of the anagami, when it's such very, very subtle clinging and ignorance, it has to be understood to be eradicated. So what about the strong ignorance and attachment now? If it's not understood now, no matter what the topic, no matter whether it's about Dhamma or anything else, if it's not understood now, then it can never be worn away. So it always comes back to this moment.
So it has to, or it can only. It has to be understood now.
It has to be understood now because it can only be understood now. It can't be understood at any other moment. And so it has to be understood when it arises, which is always at this moment. So no matter whether talking about the Dhamma or anything else, the clinging has to be understood right now.
It seems a shame not to come up with something, a topic. John is interested in speaking here.
Tanajan, I'm wondering, we were discussing your sutta earlier on, it was on the Iti-Wuttika, and there is this term, Dhamma-nimmita. I don't know if you're familiar with it, and I only wish that I had the Thai translation of that word. but the Buddha is speaking about the monk, is speaking to the bhikkhus, and he talks to them about them being full of Dhamma, or Dhamma pervaded, or Dhamma, Dhamma possesses them. Perhaps you could help us to understand that a little bit more about how Dhamma possesses, in a way, or pervades an individual.
Because it's the Dhamma now.
Yes, there
Can
is,
that be the
Tanajan.
answer?
Well, certainly,
Can
that's what.
it's anywhere, anytime.
I suppose that people will say that, yes, there must be realities at any time. And that seems to me to be, yes, it is certainly true, but is certainly something that is easily said and not understood. So that begs the question, how is it best understood, and how is it better that we understand that distinction more clearly?
Because just say that all are Dhammas, Dhammas is everywhere, anytime. It's not enough, not understanding enough yet what is meant by Dhamma. Otherwise, there must be the understanding of the truth of that which is now appearing. See, just one characteristic at a time, because each one is different. We just conclude all Dhammas, no matter where, anywhere. That is only thinking. But what about now, each one? Is it Dhamma or is it something? For example, we have heard about the word sanya. It marks, it remembers, it arises with its citta, but it does not appear as no me, not me, or anyone, because it marks and remembers all the time that which is heard or seen as something. That is the function of sanya. Just know the function of it, but not the characteristic of it, which performs that function. That's why all depends on the understanding. Clear, a little clearer and clear and clear about what is meant by nama. Otherwise we estimate that we think that we understand already about that which is nama, which is that which experiences an object. That is not enough, because it has to be at this moment of experiencing that which experiences, no matter what we call it, seeing or hearing or thinking, depending on the object, but the characteristic of a reality which arises at moment of birth and on and on and on. Each moment in life is there, experiencing. If there's not clear yet about the truth of it, as it's just that which experiences, understanding what is meant by experienced, it cannot be anything or anyone, because it's that which experiences. This is the only way to see how much understanding of the word of Buddha, from hearing to be moment of understand directly of what is there as it's taught, as we have heard, as we have understood, but not this moment. But when it becomes this moment, it begins to let go the idea of I, no matter it is sanya or feeling or whatever, just one by one. When it doesn't appear yet, how can we say that we understand it as it is? For example, sanya, that which now marking, remembering, what is that? Instantly, unknown. But it's that in word, because we have heard that whenever there is citta arising, there must be sanya arising together, performing different function. Citta is the chief of experiencing, and sanya which arises just marks that which citta experience, because it also experienced that object by way of marking that which citta experienced. And without hearing again and again, and no thought about when will it show up, that is thinking again, wishful thinking. But it's not that. It's to just understand that there are so many different realities in the day from moment to moment. That's why no think, no thought about when it will show up as it is, as we have understood. That is not the way to let go the idea of self, but just to understand what is there, not minding about that which is gone, because there is attachment to that which appears now as something. So it hinders the truth of it, that what is there has a reason and it's gone. And this is the truth that we shouldn't just don't mind or just have the thought about it carefully, because it is the truth of each moment. If it's not known, how can the idea of self be letting go? Impossible. That's why the understanding at moment of hearing about what is there as not self will condition the understanding of any moment, even not the moment of hearing. At moment of touching, any time, the understanding which has developed, accumulated, conditioned enough to understand that as what it is, as only when it's there. Little by little in life, it's the moment of having heard and accumulated and conditioned the right moment of understanding what is there, little by little, until it's clearly known. This is the development of the path leading to understanding what is there as it is. And now we're talking about what we haven't experienced yet, like sanya. We know it's there now, but it is not the object of understanding yet. So it's there as more understanding of whatever is there as not self. It can condition by the way it is, little by little, together with the Sankhara Khanda, the Cetasikas, which are there at the same moment, develop little by little. That's why just understand whatever is heard as not me, no matter what we're talking about. For example, Sanya Cetasika or Sati or whatever it is the word which represent what is there. Deep enough or not deep at all. It's only superficially, but the truth is there, down deeply, arising and falling away. That's why it takes quite a long time to let go the clinging, the thinking of the other thing which is not there, little by little, by conditions. So it's not just try so hard to have it, but understand what is meant by parami, all kinds of wholesome moment. At that moment, it's very precious because there is no akusala, because the citta is pure, satta is there for wholesome moment to carry on to action and deeds and so on in life. Otherwise, it's not the development of understanding. It's wrong understanding, deeply rooted, try to do anything or something to be known, but it's not right understanding because it's done, motivated by the idea of self, very strong, unknowingly. That's why at this very moment, understanding is there. And even just shortly after that, it can be akusala, unknown again, and panya begins to hear again and think again, consider again about that which is not the object yet. For example, sanya, see, and it is not the object that should be known by the self, but the development of that is sanya, even so, a reality which now remembers and marks. That's all, only that. When it's more and more and more and more, it can be the understanding, even it does not appear as object, but the understanding of that which is there, marking is not me, is there. That's why it's not a self who tries to pinpoint to have such and such reality as the object at all, but it let go no matter what, right understanding can understand that when it is right understanding of that degree, that level of understanding. So now is the moment of accumulation of understanding of the truth, so that there can be moment of understanding clearer, directly, of what is there now as it is, little by little. By then, they'll know about what it's meant by Satipatthana or Sampajanya and what Buddha taught about Indriya, Pala, and so on. It comes and it's known when it's there. Otherwise, when it's not Pala yet, how can we think about it as whether it is Pala? But to understand even what is there and what is there at moment, to understand it, there must be awareness, see, because actually hardness is there anytime. We talk about hardness because it's always there at moment of touching, but no thought about it at all. That's why until it's there, when there is the understanding, a little understanding, that is that, only that. So what the other reality is there can be understood little by little, that it's that which is that which is there. No one and nothing, little by little. So we learn about many things because they are there, but it depends on conditions. What would be object of understanding by conditions? So the understanding of the conditioned reality is there as no one there at all, little by little. That's why we talk about ajatan and so on, just to understand more that it cannot be taken for self or anything at all. So now we talk about sanya, and sanya hasn't been yet as object, but no thought about it to have it. All depends on condition, even it's there. Even it's there. Many cetasikas are there, depending on what is the moment when it show up as the object to direct understanding with direct awareness. This is the understanding of the anatthaness, better, clearer, deeper of that which is now, as it is, no more, gone. And it depends on how strong right understanding is enough to be joyful of understanding the truth in life. Not me, see, very difficult to understand that it is no one and nothing at all, while it appears as a doll of flower all the time. Curtain, soap, water, food, whatever in life is there to be understood little by little, because understanding is no one, it does not belong to anyone, it's conditioned so it can arise. Like other reality, the same exactly. So we can talk about anything to have more understanding about its truth as no one and nothing, no self. And it's gone. What about the next one, which is now appearing and then gone?
Thank you, Ajahn. I think it's
Yes, I think we're
time.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Deepa.
ขอบคุณมากครับอาจารย์ Thank you everybody.
Thank you.
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
See you
ครับ
next
อาจาร
time.
ย์ขอบคุณครับ
โอทันเวลาคุณจอน
Hi, Major. Thank you. Good to know you're here, Metta.
Thank you